Welcome in, Yellow Jacket fans, to another edition of Tech Talks, and we are officially 1 week out from opening day for your Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets back at McNeese Baseball Park next Friday to open the 2026 season versus Bowling Green. And here to talk more about it is your head coach, James Ramsey. Ramsey, good to see you again. How are you?
Doing great, Andy. We're like you said, we're excited. We're a week away, just finishing final prep and looking to big 2026 ahead for the Jackets.
Yeah, the excitement continues to build in your clubhouse, but we know it is at a fever pitch for the fans. They've seen all the preseason accolades pour in, both for your team as a whole and for some of your individuals. Now, we know that expectations can empower some teams and it can burden others, and there can sometimes be a fine line with that. As a head coach, how do you sense your team handling those expectations the right way as he gets set for first pitch?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that, obviously we've kind of played out in real time right now. And part of it is we got to create pressure for these guys from the first fall workout we've had. We kind of, talked about leaving no doubt. And this team was kind of had a, big mission it wanted to accomplish anyways, regardless of what other people thought about us. And, talking through fall ball and talking through, the off season, I felt like this team was going to get a lot of respect. And that's what we want to build in this program. And the other part you mentioned about just getting the fan base excited. We've had so many great interactions with fans and people are excited. And that's what our players want. They want, McNeese ballpark to be jumping and they want the intense crowds and they want the home field advantage. And you want that stuff to start now. So then when later in the season, when the weather's warmer and the postseason rolls around, it's not something we have to get used to as a fan base. It's, hey, the expectation is we're going to be out here early and often. We're going to be the X factor for this team because that's something that we are going to rely on a lot is when you come into Russ Chandler Stadium at McNeese Ballpark, maybe traditionally it's like, hey, it's good crowds and it kind of depends on the day. I think from the administration to the fan base to the players in the clubhouse, everybody's kind of pulling this, thing in the same direction of we're going to be an exciting product to watch. And so we're going to be something that people want to come out and see. They're going to bring their, friends and family out here and we're going to provide a great show. But I think the expectation side just starts with the leadership on the team and our leadership's elite. And it's guys that have already dealt with their own personal or team burdens and expectations in the past. So it's nothing new for a lot of these guys.
That's fantastic. Look, we all know that you have a fearsome offense, maybe one of the best in the country, but to accomplish your goals, you also need that pitching staff to do its part. How have you seen Coach Taylor sharpen the arms ahead of opening day? What has he confident that you've got the depth, you've got the talent to make sure that even when the offense may not be totally on a given day, you got a pitching staff that'll pick them up?
Yeah, our pitching staff. I mean, once again, you go back to guys like, Tate McKee and Mason Patel that, and you add a couple transfers that are seasoned veterans that have played at a high level. Dylan Loy's a big one for me just because of who he is. And the guy's pulse never gets, running high. He's always cool under pressure. And so I think that's the way you start it. On the flip side, you look at we have a lot of talent and depth, but in reality, famous last words, right? But we've maintained our health and that is diligent offseason programming. That's diligent fall usage of pitchers. And so that's the other area of you look at there's, trust me, injuries can be totally unpreventable, but the part that we've been able to manage, Coach Daylor has done a great job managing that alongside Coach Richmond. And, I think that's the other part is now that these guys are healthy, they're in a great workspace. They've had the right amount of innings against a really good offense is if you're having success with a given pitch, with a given outing, that's something that is going to absolutely directly translate to the highest levels. And so, I think that's the iron sharpening iron mentality we've had is these guys have had plenty of days where they've thrown the ball extremely well. And so at the end of the day, baseball is so much about confidence is our pitching staff has a ton of confidence going into the season. And I think that's, it's more than you could say of some of the staffs in the past.
Finally, Coach, so many proven returning commodities, whether it's a Drew Burris or a Von Lackey, Carson Kurz, Ken Schmidt, Caleb Daniel, Alex Hernandez, the list just goes on and on. And on the pitching staff, you got Mason Patel, Tate McKee, like you had mentioned, but fill in this blank. Georgia Tech fans, do not sleep on blank.
Man, I think obviously just the incomers. I think that would be something that the 12 of them between the 7 freshmen, the 5 transfers, those guys as a whole, they all are filling needs of if you're a Georgia Tech baseball fan and you're saying, I'm looking for the X factor to get to Omaha. You look at, hey, versatility of when guys go in a slump or we need defensive replacements. It's pitching depth, it's upside. We've answered those questions. And so now I think it's more a matter of just how these guys come in to fill the formula. But I mean, to actually give you a name, I think Ryan Zuckerman's probably one that comes to mind. And then I mentioned Dylan Loy earlier. And so I think, Justin Shattuck would be the other guy of just, hey, those two guys. And then the three-headed monster is freshmen between Vincennes, Underwood, and Wilcox. Those guys are going to become household names really quickly.
I love that. Why not get that household name starting next Friday, opening day at McNeese Baseball Park? Tickets are going fast. Make sure you get yours and watch this team all throughout the spring of 2026. James Ramsey, thanks so much for joining us in this edition of Tech Talks. We'll see you out at the ballpark.
Thanks, Andy. Go Jackets.